Maar it's a small world waarschijnlijk. Maar ja, er zijn 5000 mensen in België.
Welcome to the podcast of Indisruptive and Friends, the podcast where we play with industry and tech peers, between candy, espresso, and soda, and the necessary small talk. Merciless trashing or caching mantras, biases, and trends for the next coming years. This podcast is sponsored today by our friends from Industrial Fairs, organizing 6 techno-industrial events where tomorrow's technology is on display today. Live from Abyss in Kortrijk Expo, our guest today is Jan Van Looy from Deloitte. I could use a lot of time for our viewers to introduce you, but Jan, tell me, who are you and what are you doing?
Who am I? I'm someone who's been working with AI already 10 years now. So first as a researcher at IMEC and Ghent University, but then as a specialized consultant. I love tech, I love AI, and now I'm a specialist leader at Deloitte, specialized in AI.
Okay, so give me a little bit more of a background. You come from IMEC, you come from out of a research scientific ecosystem into a consulting company for technology.
Yes.
Isn't that a big deep dive in another pond?
So actually already at IMEC and Ghent University, I love to work with companies and I love the scientific work as well. But at some point, you have to choose, kind of. You have to choose either I stay in academia, which is a certain type of environment, or you move, you go to use your knowledge elsewhere and get your hands dirty. And at some point, I decided that is what I want to do. I want to, and also I had already done a number of projects, also applied projects with companies using AI, and I felt okay, something really interesting is about to happen here. I want to be there, and I want to be in industry while that is happening.
You wanted to go from the research phase to the real implementation in a real world, real time.
When you're a professor or when you're a researcher, actually the impact you have is a few dozen citations of your research paper. I wanted to do more. I wanted to help people and make sure that like put solutions out in the world.
Okay, so just wondering, how long are you here now? You were a speaker on Abyss. How long are you here on Abyss? Something like 2 or 3 hours, or?
Yeah, I arrived around noon.
And what's your impression? Is it the first time?
It is my first time.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. It looks
it's never
great.
too late for a first time and a second time. But what's your impression? This is really digitization technology for industry. Any particular things that?
So I was amazed actually by the diversity of because it's not just about manufacturing or industry, but it's actually IT services in industry, and it's amazing how many specific companies there are, and also I'm really amazed by the number of people here. It's a
and
very
small
busy
companies and startups.
Small companies,
yeah.
startups, and very creative,
very
creative solutions.
Yeah.
So
hopefully, the next move from Sam Altman is not that all those startups are getting wiped away by his super app that he's pretending to make. But that's a discussion for another topic. Now, Jan, let's fire up. Let's trash or cash. Let's start with some ideologies, some mantras that we put through the ringer here. One of them, maybe before we start, because I know that AI is your thing. Maybe you can explain in a very simple way, in a very simple fashion, what is the difference between an AI copilot and an AI agent, because it's all about power.
It's about power and it's about capabilities. They are not that far apart, but they are actually at different stages in the development of what's usually called Gen AI. Basically, what we are witnessing today is that AI is on a growth path, in the sense of size. About 10 years ago, people started realizing when we make models bigger, when we give them more parameters, they get smarter and they almost automatically learn. So, for example, ChatGPT was the first that could answer questions properly, but that was not the end point. The following models could start to translate perfectly, start to actually plan ahead. Also, they start to use tools. So you can now use ask an LLM, hey, look online for a good company to do this or that. You can do that today. And this is actually it's a gradual increase. And whereas the Copilot is primarily aimed to be your kind of advisor,
Advisor, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of an advisor. Newer models are being trained to be much more powerful in the use of external tools and in planning. So basically, a newer model, you might ask it to do a research, for example, a market research in like a certain geo, a certain topic, and it will go online. It will actually break up that question, that request in different subtasks, and will then hand out those subtasks to other agents, then collect all the information they get back and deliver you a really nice report. So actually we're moving from models that can just answer questions to models that can plan, select tools, use tools, and then report back to you. And those are agents as in taking actions.
Is there a not only or not also a difference in the fact that or am I getting this totally wrong, that agents make decisions,
Yes, so
such whereas pilots just say, Jan, you better take the bottle like that with your cobot, just and that the agent says the cobot has to take the bottle like that.
it's it's definitely that. So it's but in the jargon, this is usually referred to as planning and tool use, because that's the essence. So basically, models used to be very bad at planning. So if you would ask them, intrinsically, models are just about predicting the next words. But at some point, they got smart enough to think ahead and to really make a planning, and then indeed to make decisions not just on what the subtasks are, but also perform these actions using tools. And today you could have, like, when you use ChatGPT today, it's usually GPT-5, and it has at its disposal internet search as a tool, but also, for example, a Python interpreter. So you can ask, hey, can you develop a Hello World application and run it? And it can do that internally, but actually it is about taking actions, right? So it takes actions, but through
Without your
tool
consent.
use.
In fact, without your consent, it's already
Exactly.
taking actions and say, I'm going to book this, I'm going to take this, I'm going to combine that. It's not reasoning in that way that it says, Jan, now I'm asking you, give me clearance to do this or this. It just takes actions in also in their planning and in decision making.
Yeah, and it's about how much power you give it. Like, I've seen like experiments with agents where someone gave an agent their CV and said, apply for me. And the AI went online and started sending, like, looking for job openings that would match his CV, and actually start sending pictures, start sending letters to companies, and subscribe for interviews. And
So yeah, there can be on the other side an agent who says, I like that guy. I'm gonna hire him. No, anyway,
imagine.
yeah. And now getting back to your lecture and for people in an industrial public, in what stage are we now? Are we for let's say for the middle part of the industry? I'm not talking about the top, and I'm not talking about the bottom. But let's say out of from medium, small, medium until the larger breeds. In what stage are we? Are we in the stage that factories are using, in many cases, pilots,
Mhm.
or are we already in a stage that there are good business cases for agents?
Mhm. So what we see is that actually companies are at very different stages. Actually, you mentioned companies that have co-pilots. There are actually still many companies that don't even have co-pilots, and there's this interesting statistic that 90% of people use AI at work, but only 40% of companies have like a proper internal chatbots or co-pilots, so to speak. So there's a lot of shadow AI with a lot of danger, right? So one of the things like we see in the market is that a lot of companies are a bit late to step into that first step, like enable their workers,
Mm-hmm.
which is an important first step. Just make sure it's really on the individual productivity level. Just give your employees the tools to do their work properly using AI, because otherwise they might start using free versions, and that's a big danger for IP leakage, because when you use, for example, free ChatGPT, literally you are allowing the next version of ChatGPT to be trained on the data you submit.
To get it more into detail, what I'm wondering now you're talking about the more advanced and paid version of ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
5 point,
Yeah, 5.0.
I guess still O. If I get all my people experimenting on the paid version to make their own models, make their own applications, I have to put data into it. I have to put maybe IP sensitive information into it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any guarantee that this can't be used against you?
So there, once you move to a paid version, you have various degrees of security, right? So, but once you move to that level, it's very similar to clouds, using clouds in your company. So actually, using, for example, GPT on Azure, or Claude on AWS or Google or whatever, is very secure, or at least as secure
Depending
as putting
depending
your
on your
data on.
status, you get access to some information you can put on the training model. If you're not allowed to do that, then you have no access to that data.
So just to be clear, when you take a license, for example, on ChatGPT or whatever, they are not like it's explicit in the user agreement that they are not allowed to use any of your data for future training. So it's very similar to using an online storage or an online database. You do not fear that the next
Mm-hmm.
version of ChatGPT will be trained on your database on Azure, right? So there, it's no use to be too fearful. There are guardrails there. They are not allowed. This data does not leave
Yeah.
your private cloud.
Okay. Now we've been talking about all that as you are visiting and consulting industrial clients. Give us a taste of. You don't have to give any names, but what types of industries are now really supercharging in AI in their processes?
No, very interesting. So we've had a time when RAG was all the craze. RAG, retrieval augmented generation, is about making knowledge assistants within your company, right? So that was the year 24, more or less. So this has been a huge improvement
Yeah.
in many cases. But then now we're actually moving towards the agentic age, where agents take up more and more complex tasks within companies. And where do we see a lot of things happening? Primarily, to be honest, it's in the more virtual industries. What do I mean by
Enlighten me. What do you
virtual?
mean with by vertical then?
Virtual,
Oh, virtual. Okay. Yeah.
virtual, and you'll get what I mean. It's for example finance, it's insurance,
Okay.
it's
It's not
media.
really in
Like
operations.
it's like actually things like manufacturing, especially traditional manufacturing and mining, and like the very traditional um, industries are a bit lagging a bit behind. Although there as well, certain business functions, like supporting functions within the organization, are also quickly transforming.
But yeah, by instance, aerospace, automotive, are they ahead of the curve?
Actually, we have. I'm actually working with a large automotive client, and they are very much ahead. But it's primarily in business function automation.
Yeah, it's not immediately in manufacturing, maintenance, assembly, warehousing, or other stuff that they are implementing agents.
Currently, that is still the domain of traditional AI, traditional computing. But I'm absolutely convinced that also like more advanced agentic technologies will also start entering that domain. But currently,
Yeah,
we see a lot of like very low hanging fruit in things like sales, marketing.
yeah.
For example, also all kinds of reporting, compliance, legal. Those why is that the case? Because
Sending emails, replying emails, things like that, robot process automation, stuff
exactly.
like that. But so, if I really catch what you're saying, we are still too early for a company who says, "Listen, I want secure things in maintenance." For example, if there's an electromotor which makes a lot of noise and a lot of temperature and a lot of peaks into his frequencies, suddenly an agent says, "I'm taking the decision now to shut this down because it's a critical component, and I'm taking the decision to order a new one or to give a signal to the warehouse, maintenance warehouse, to do a replacement."
Well, typically those types of analyses would be done using traditional machine learning or traditional AI. And then, of course, agents could monitor those machines and flag and report on certain statistics. Actually, this is also something we see a lot. I also in my talk showed data agents. So what you see today, you have a lot of organizations that are gathering a lot of data, but someone needs to monitor that, right? And so you can have dashboards which are easy to use for people, but you still have to look at them. And now more and more you see data agents pop up, which exactly as you mentioned, that can actually monitor dashboards, monitor logs, monitor and every day make an outline of what's happening, all the interesting changes that appear, and also flag certain developments
Yeah,
within
that's a
your
little bit like
organization.
the platform from Palantir,
Yes,
uh,
exactly.
something like
There's
that.
a so
Okay,
decision
yeah,
intelligence kind
decision
of
intelligence. Yeah,
that's
and
it's a huge
yeah.
growth engine currently.
So if it can in military operations, it should work in industrial operations.
Absolutely.
But the kind of customization, because every process is so specific, certainly mining, which is very unpredictable. It's but if I can wrap that story up, we're not ready there yet for a lot of implementations.
It's only starting.
It's
It's
only
true.
starting.
And
It's
actually
really in the
the
virtual
heavy work,
business and business
yeah,
processes.
and the heavy just one more thing, like the heavy work is usually not done by the very advanced AI itself. It's about the capturing of the right data, the good logging, having AI ready data. That's where the challenge lies, and once you make that available to these models, they can deal with it. But the challenge is very often that first step.
I suppose you expected something like that. And let's get into the philosophical. If I'm, suppose I'm a guy from something like 60 years old, I definitely do manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot really good interpret or open a spreadsheet as things are evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Can I pack my things or?
I think on the contrary, actually what we're seeing that there are like first movements in hiring due to AI. And it's actually usually white collar work that is changing profoundly. So a lot of menial tasks in white collar work, like so to speak, putting a stamp every time something is right, or like checking expenses. I don't know, like that kind of work, which requires some human understanding, but not very sophisticated human understanding. Actually, models today can perfectly do that.
Repetitive and not complex.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly. But this is moving very
it's
quickly,
moving
right?
very quickly because to catch you in that team, you must have read it. Suddenly, everybody gets disrupted. We are event organizers, you are consultants.
Yes.
If you read the narrative on Main Street, Accenture,
Mhm.
Infosys, all the companies are ditching a lot of people because they say we don't need them anymore. Maybe that question is relevant for you, and the question is relevant for me. We are, I suppose, white collars. We think we have something unique, maybe, or we pretend we have something unique. Are we in danger?
We are in danger in terms of subject to being subject to change. Absolutely. And I actually my even my job is changing continually. Maybe to go back to capabilities of AI, like there's this great graphic, and there's actually this benchmark that tries to measure how strong models are today, agentic
Mm-hmm.
models. And what we're seeing today, if you think of the traditional chat GPT, it was capable of doing tasks of a few seconds. When you would ask a question and it would come up with a simple answer. With GPT-4, that was already like 10 minutes. It could do, especially in coding, things that take about 10 minutes for a human to do. But actually, that type of evolution is being tracked by a certain benchmark, and we're now at about, with GPT-5, at about 2 hours. So coding tasks, coding a certain like programming a certain,
Programming, yes.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
programming a task of 2 hours, and an AI can now do that independently. And we see that every 6 to 7 months this doubles. So it's actually growing
It's like a
exponentially.
kind of Moore's law, but for artificial
Exactly.
intelligence.
So actually, when we follow that curve, I think by 2030 we'll be at about a month. So an AI will be able to perform a programming task of about a month. So just think like the creation of an app. You could be able by 2030, if the curve continues, you would just ask, hey, can you build me an app to do this or that in my house? I don't know. And it would be able to do
Yeah,
that.
or start a business plan, make a website. This is the name.
Go
This
make
is
money online.
yeah, make my this is my account. Whatever. Yeah, it's really. But of course, we close every talk, and we are people who are with their feet on the ground. There is a lot of narrative. I think one message for everybody is reinvent yourself. Just as AI is reinventing itself in a faster pace, I think we will have to reinvent our jobs ourselves. Otherwise, we will be ditched. That there is no other
Absolutely.
solution. Is there something which keeps picking in the skin that you told in your keynote that you would like to give us to
Absolutely. Actually, some about a month ago, I think in the news, in the TEDs and worldwide news, it says like MIT study 95% of AI pilots fail or something. I'm not sure if you've seen that.
pilot purgatory?
Gen AI
No.
pilots. Like first of all, the numbers are wrong. But it is indeed that actually a majority of AI pilots fail, especially when for complex custom applications. But what's actually more, it's about, yeah, 25% that actually reaches production. FYI. But what's even more interesting in that same study was that the challenge was never technology. Actually, the top 5 reasons of failure of projects, there was only one technological one, and it was the quality of the output of the AI. All the others were related to company contexts. So the most important one was
Enlighten
actually
me.
people.
Enlighten me. Is it then garbage in, garbage out, or what do you mean?
Data was there,
Yeah.
like the quality of or the availability of AI ready data was one of the things, but actually the most important factors were actually related to acceptance of people, because it really, like, the study looked at rollout, right, like actual use in an actual company, in an actual organization. And a very big challenge was get your people ready, teach them to learn, teach them to work with these new technologies, and make sure that that the technologies are adapted to what their needs are. I found that very interesting. Other factors were, for example, support, and within like C-level support for transformation. So it's very much about the traditional transformation factors currently, like make sure that your organization has a clear vision on where to move, then identify, like, define a business case, like how much do we want to invest, what do we want to get out of it, by when, and then define KPIs and good use cases. And so in that sense, it's like, okay, philosophy is fun to think about, like, hey, where will we be in several years, but like right now it's about being willing and to start a trajectory in AI with your organization. And then you you see that people start to come up with new ideas, new use cases. And what we see also in the statistics is that those companies that successfully implement AI, they generate up to, I think it was 60% more like shareholder value, and they grow up to 50% faster. So there's a very strong correlation between that willingness to try new things and move forward in new
So
technologies
if I
and
read
performance.
you right, the human factor in AI is, or it is an accelerator and an
Exactly.
inspirer, or the human factor can be the pilot killer, which puts the whole project after a while in the purgatory.
It goes both ways. So the person people are a prerequisite for successful AI rollouts, and the AI is indeed a very strong accelerator for people primarily. Like, because it's always about automation and will everyone be redundant? Today, it's not about that at all. There are certain tasks that increasingly AI can take up, but usually it's not the tasks people like to do. So, for example, I showed a movie of Zora AI. It's about an automatic finance analysis agent. And what they basically do is they look into piles of data and come up with interesting perspectives on that data. You used to need data analysts for that, but it was a lot of grinding work, cleaning the data, trying to find the right variables. This can now all be done by AI, and actually the data analysts can look at data with a much fresher view. They can start thinking about how can this data inform our strategy, for example, which is a much more interesting.
It's more from a helicopter view that you
Exactly.
see structures where you shouldn't see structures because you're too occupied with the other stuff.
Absolutely.
Jan, it was a very pleasant conversation. We could talk for hours, I
Absolutely.
guess, and maybe you will even later on talk for hours, but I know you're on a tight schedule. If people want to get in touch with you or follow you, maybe you have some publications or you sometimes you post your findings. Where can people find you?
I think the easiest way is to link with me on LinkedIn. So if you type my name, you should be able
Jan
to
Van
find
Looy,
me.
Y.
Looy.
All right. Okay. Jan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
To the listeners and the viewers, of course, thank you very much for your time. Hoping to see you next time on the next podcast. Thank you. Bye.